Thank you, Dion. And a few years ago, ladies and gentlemen, I had to talk to a group of Bonsmara farmers. And their conference took place in the thriving metropolis of Bothaville. And they had a program director or a master of ceremonies who took his job very seriously. And I don't know how he did it, but he got hold of the long version of my CV, and he was determined to read the whole thing. And I sat there and I started blushing, and I became increasingly more uncomfortable. And then fortunately, a farmer who sat in the second row. So when the MC got to page 3, the farmer put up his hand, and he kept his hand up. And eventually the MC had no option but to ask. It was a Mr. Jopie Swanepoel. And he said, Mr. Swanepoel, you want to say something? And he stood up, en hy het in Afrikaans gepraat. Hy sê, om hemelsnaam, ons wil nie met brand teel nie, ons wil net na hom luister. Yeah. So Joseph, he said, for heaven's sake, we don't want to breed with brand, we just want to listen to him. So that cut the CV short. So I just want to say it's such a privilege for me to be with you, and Roy, I want to thank you for your invitation. I want to thank Joseph and Mariette and Dion. I feel very privileged, and I read about KVV and what you've achieved since 2015, and it's clear that it's a wonderful partnership, and the mere fact that you have so many of your customers here. And Roy, this initiative you took, the KVV Masters, I think it's such a praiseworthy initiative. And my impression of the key partners this morning, my impressions are very favorable. And I can see that within your firm, you value integrity, you value honesty, you value relationships and partnerships, and you deliver the results, and you give quality advice, and you are experts in your field. So I just want to say thank you for having me here. I'm saying on behalf of all of us here, thank you for your wonderful hospitality. Thank you for the investment that you're making in a function like this. And I know that KVV will continue to prosper. So ek dink ons kan vir die KVV span net 'n groot applaus. So I'm going to talk about leadership. I said to Roy, next time I'll just do the introduction, and then Roy will come up and speak, because he's a real expert on leadership. So I also have a passion for leadership. I also have a passion for people. And this morning when I arrived here, I met a very special friend. He's behind that camera there. His name is Courage. And Courage and I got to know one another over the last couple of years, because he's been behind that camera on a few occasions. So Courage, you give me courage, you give me inspiration, and I therefore want to dedicate this talk, Courage, to you. So why am I so passionate about leadership? I'm sure many of you have read John Maxwell's books. In one of his books, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, he starts off the book by saying, everything rises and falls on leadership. So over the years, I've thought about the impact of leadership and what leadership does. And my conclusion is that leadership unlocks human advantage. Leadership unleashes human potential. And certainly in the world of business, or whether you run a law firm, or whatever business you run, and also even in the country, one can liken leadership to electricity. So where there's quality leadership, the lights are on. And people have direction, and they have hope, and they're enthusiastic, and they are engaged, and they have energy, and they are motivated and inspired, and there's light, and they do their best. But the opposite is also true. Where there's a lack of leadership, poor leadership, where there's the tyranny of the boss, there's no electricity. People, figuratively speaking, spend their days in the dark, without direction, without hope, disengaged, devoid of purpose, and the inevitable consequence is they deliver poor results. So in the world of business, certainly, the quality of leadership represents the most critical success factor. The quality of leadership represents the most potent competitive advantage any business can ever have. And then the quality of leadership of self, it's the source of every great achievement. The quality of leadership of self is the bedrock of every extraordinary life. That's how important leadership is. So what is the current reality? Can we say with confidence that, for example, if we look at South Africa, if we look at South African businesses, the quality of leadership is fantastic? I'd love to say so, but scientific evidence points to the fact that in many businesses, the quality of leadership is poor. Should one look at the results of employee engagement surveys, and I'm not going to bore you by giving you a lot of statistics, but Gallup, they do every second year an employee engagement survey, and then they do it within companies, and then they aggregate the results. Most recent results, 2016, only 8% of South African employees said, I trust my leader. I respect my leader. I identify with the vision of my organization. I try and behave in line with the values of my organization. I feel I belong here. I do my best. Only 8%. But the more concerning part is 46% almost confessed and said, I hate what I do. I don't trust management. I don't identify with the vision or the mission. Frankly, I just do enough to stay out of trouble. 46%. That is such a reflection on the quality of leadership. And people sometimes say, oh, but South African workers, they don't want to work, and they're lazy, and they're this. they are that. And I thought about it again this morning on the way here, because I drove past Woodley, because I live in Johannesburg. Last employee engagement survey that I personally supervised at McCarthy happened in 2011. McCarthy Nissan Sandton compared to McCarthy Nissan Germiston. Same holding company, same business, same trading environment. Only one variable, quality of leadership. Fully engaged in Sandton, 6%. Fully engaged in Germiston, 50%. 6% versus 50%. Autocratic boss didn't deserve the respect of his people. Inspirational servant leader in Germiston. Dramatic difference. When it comes to engagement, leadership is the key. So what is the desired outcome if we say poor leadership, people are switched off, devoid of purpose, work is like a life sentence, something to endure? So that's the negative. What is the positive? What do we work towards if we say we want to be an effective leader? So if we are an effective leader at home, or in a business, or wherever we are in a leadership capacity, if we are an effective leader, then we get every member of the team to buy into the vision of the organization, to share in the same dream. If we are an effective leader, then we get every team member, from the security man to the director, to behave in line with the organization's values. But this is the real test. If you're an effective leader, then you get all your team members to volunteer their intelligence and their energy and their enthusiasm and their contribution and their loyalty. So I want to say it again, because I want you to have that picture. If you get to the point where you can say with confidence you're an effective leader, then you know that you have the ability to motivate and inspire people so that they volunteer their intelligence and their energy and their contribution and their commitment. If you're an effective leader, then your people accept co-responsibility. Then you needn't play policeman, look over their shoulder all the time. Because there's syndicated leadership. There's a sense of belonging. So effective leaders reframe the world of work. And they ensure that there's alignment between the business objectives and the personal objectives. They ensure that the work environment is conducive to people feeling acknowledged and respected. People feel that they are appreciated and trusted. And then people spontaneously do their best. Effective leaders, if you look at the work environment that they create, that work environment is a place where humanity flourishes. And obviously where productivity and performance and results follow. Because effective leaders produce results. So is it easy to get people to the point, all your people, is it easy to get them to the point where they volunteer their intelligence and their energy and their contribution and their commitment? It's very difficult. Why do I say it's difficult? I think one sort of indicator is the fact that more than 14 million books have already been written about management and leadership. It's now 14,000,001. Because I also wrote one, as you heard Dion tell you. So, people are still looking for answers. Am I equipped to give you advice? At Toyota, I learned a little bit from success. Toyota in the mid-70s had a market share of 8%. And in 1995, the last year of my tenure at Toyota, it had a market share of 30%. There's a Japanese word for little, it's squashy. So I learned a little bit from success. And then I joined McCarthy, and Dion omitted that part, which is a good thing because now I can tell the story. When I joined McCarthy, it was a blue chip, diversified retailer, a listed company. It had a motor group and then a non-motor group called Prefco. And Prefco sold furniture and building material and clothing on credit into the lower end of the market. So it was South Africa's only mass retailer. You could buy from a pair of underpants to a Rolls Royce from McCarthy. It was a blue chip company, but at the end of the 90s it became a slop chip company. Because the Prefco division, when they gained access to the strong McCarthy balance sheet, following the merger of the two companies in 1992, they started extending credit to all and sundry. If you could provide a fingerprint, you got credit. And unfortunately, Joseph, you know those things are not sustainable. So at the end of the 1990s, the Prefco division of McCarthy, the bad debt, just went through the roof, and then they tightened up on the lending criteria and the turnover went through the floor. And in 2001, the company, the holding company, was declared technically insolvent. And it was at that time that the chairman of the group, the late Brian McCarthy, came to me and said, "Grant, you're doing a reasonable job running the motor business. The holding company is in desperate trouble. We would like you to take over as chief executive of the group." I thought about it. I prayed about it. I spoke to my family about it. I spoke to some experts who understood the situation McCarthy found itself in. And then I thought about my 7,000 people within McCarthy Motor Holdings. 7,000 people who did a fine job, 7,000 people who would be victims of McCarthy's bankruptcy. And then I said yes, and I accepted the challenge. The share price fell from 21 Rand to 18 cents. We had 15,000 employees, we had 1,100 retail outlets, and we owed 8 banks 1.5 billion Rand, way back in the year 2000. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you because the 3 years that followed, it was the toughest period of my life. We worked day and night. We prayed. I tried to surround myself with the best people possible. I learned about myself and my faith. I learned about business. I learned about the power of the human spirit. I learned about leadership. And I don't want you to be depressed, because through the grace of God and because of some wonderful people, capable people who helped me, over a 3-year period we managed to turn the group around and we saved thousands of jobs. So the few lessons I'm going to share with you now, I didn't read about it in a book. I wrote a book about those lessons. I'm going to share with you in humility but with conviction, not only what I experienced and what I learned, but more than that, I'm going to share with you what I stand for and what I believe in. And I hope that there will be something of value for you. Because that's what the KVV Masters is all about, to equip you with knowledge and insight that you can apply. So what is the first leadership lesson I learned? The first leadership lesson I learned is, if you can't lead yourself, then you will never even get out of the starting blocks leading other people. So it's a complicated subject, all by itself, the leadership of self, but I'm just going to touch on a few prerequisites for the effective leadership of self. The first one is a high level of moral intelligence. If you want to lead effectively, you must know the difference between right and wrong. So your moral intelligence informs your conscience. And the leaders I admire, they anchor their behavior and their decisions in the right principles and values. They have a high level of moral intelligence. Second prerequisite for effective leadership of self is a high level of emotional intelligence. Because we work under tremendous pressure, and we must have the ability to understand and manage our own emotions. We can't rant and rave and shout and scream and afford to be temperamental and belittle people. So your EQ determines whether you can manage your own emotions and whether you have the sensitivity to the emotions of other people. Third prerequisite, you need self-discipline. If you want to lead yourself properly, you need self-discipline. Self-discipline is all about doing what you need to do, when you have to do it, whether you feel like it or not. So that is what one would call a Murava challenge. That is a challenge. You need perseverance. It's a tough world. This is not a country for sissies. This is frontier territory. So you have to hang in. I write about it in my book, the meeting. There was one critical meeting after McCarthy's insolvency. It was a meeting where we got all 8 heads of credit of the 8 banks we owed 1.5 billion rand to together in one room. And they had their legal representatives with them. And we wanted them to sign a debt restructure agreement that would save McCarthy's. And we started at 9 in the morning. And 5, 10, 15 times during the course of the day, credit managers stormed out, said, "We are not going to be party to this agreement." And who ran after them? I did. Who grabbed them by the arm? Who almost went on his knees? I did. Perseverance. Did it pay off? 2 o'clock the next morning, the agreement was signed. If we didn't persevere, the consequences would have been a very serious situation. Last component of effective leadership of self, such an important component. You must have passion, you must have energy, and you need enthusiasm. Because that will set you apart. Because we are surrounded by negativity. We are immersed in negativity. So this morning again I met a few people here, and I could immediately sense passion, energy, enthusiasm. Those are key differentiators when it comes to the leadership of self. So, second lesson I learned is that leadership has got nothing to do with power, position, importance, and authority. But leadership has got everything to do with influence. And influence needs to be earned. There's no shortcut. So I want to explain, if you need authority to be a leader, then I feel so sorry for you. Because you will have no real influence, because the influence will come from the power and the authority. But if you set the right example 24/7, and if you deliver the results, then you earn influence, and the influence will be sustainable. Good leaders are good influencers, and they've earned the influence. The next lesson I learned is there's a big difference between leading people and managing people. And both functions are very important, but my observation, Roy, is that the majority of teams are overmanaged and under-led. So what are the differences between leading people and managing people? So leadership, Mariette, as you know, is all about faith and people and passion and purpose. Leadership is about giving direction. Leadership is about inspiring people and motivating people. And management is very important as well. It's about coordinating people's activities, planning their activities, and obviously controlling people's activities. So leadership is of critical importance when it comes to giving direction and inspiring people. And management is of critical importance when it comes to effective execution. But because of operational pressure, many leaders end up just managing. because you do firefighting all day long, and you coordinate and you plan and you control, but you hardly ever give direction and motivate and inspire. So it's so important to strike the right balance. Leaders create a better tomorrow, managers focus on today. Leaders effect change, managers maintain the status quo. Leadership is attitude-based, management is skills-based. Leaders focus on people, managers focus on activities and processes. Leaders inspire and trust, and managers micromanage and control. So one can put it differently. Leaders do the right things when it comes to providing the right strategic direction and setting the example in terms of principles and values, and managers do the right things right when it comes to effective execution. Next lesson. You can't lead on autopilot or by emulating somebody else. You need to have your own authentic leadership approach. So what are the options? Option one is very popular. You're just the boss. You use your positional power and your authority. You put the fear of God into your people. You intimidate them should it be necessary, and if they don't do their jobs, you fire them. Does it still work? Doesn't. Instructions have become laughably ineffective. So autocratic leadership just brings about reluctant compliance. It's the mortal enemy of energy and motivation. So, Dion, you were so diplomatic in terms of my age, but then you disclosed when I started at Toyota, so you gave the game away. So I can remember when I was promoted for the first time. Happened on the 1st of March 1974. So I was appointed as Toyota's market research manager, and I can still remember I couldn't wait to get home to tell Tilly. So what did I want to tell Tilly? That I was going to become a boss. I wanted to tell her about my office, not solid wall, frosted glass, but my own office, desk, 2 visitors' chairs. Can you believe it? 2 phones. 2 phones nogal. A secretary, a reserved parking bay. And I wanted to tell Tilly we're going to be rich, because I got a 20 Rand a month increase. So Tilly, she was proud of me, but not super excited, which I couldn't understand. But nevertheless, so the next morning, I walked into that office with the black phone and the red phone. And what did I do? I started emulating my boss, and I can gossip about him now because he lives in Australia. And I'm not going to mention his name in case one of you may know him. So I grew up in Bultfontein. My late father was a teacher. So my knowledge of business was very limited. So when I was appointed market research manager, I became a meneer. Because that's what my boss was. He was very strict. He was very important. He was difficult. His communication with us was limited, but he either reprimanded us, or criticized us, gave us instructions. So I tried to do the same thing and it didn't work. So fortunately, a few weeks later, we went down to Bloemfontein. It was my late mother's birthday. And the Sunday afternoon on the way back to Johannesburg, I said to Tilly, I've been emulating the wrong leader. She said, yeah. I said, yes. I should rather emulate my mother. And I could see Tilly frowned because my father was 10 years older than my mother, and my father was a teacher, and my mother sat in his class. And 5 months after she matriculated, he married her. She never had a job. She didn't go to university. But she raised 4 boys without ever raising her voice. And she earned our respect and our trust and our admiration and our love. And although my father was the undisputed head of the household, my mother was the heart. And she had infinitely more influence than what he had. My mother has been my role model. She will always be. So on that Monday, I wasn't the boss anymore. I became a servant leader. Over the years, I said to myself many a time, Grant, before you can ask for a hand, you need to touch a heart. I learned in my own home that people respond better to love than to fear. Also in the workplace, if you care about your people and if you're willing to serve them, you take your relationship with them to a different level. And they join hands with you, and they are honest, and they are committed, and they are helpful. To lead is also to serve. You can be bold in terms of your objectives, but there's no need to be a bully. You can be firm but fair. You can be rigorous when it comes to results, but not ruthless when it comes to people. You can be gentle but fearless. Kind, but not weak. And some cynics say, if you care about your people and if you serve them, they will take advantage of you and the results will the discipline will evaporate, the results will disappear. But my experience is the exact opposite. When McCarthy was bankrupt, we had to mobilize the intelligence and the energy and the commitment and the contribution of 15,000 people. I said to my management team repeatedly, we must get McCarthy out of trouble to save it. But we must do it in a decent manner. We must treat people with respect. We must be transparent. We must care about them. I said to them repeatedly, one key objective we had to maximize cash flow in order to keep the group alive. Some months we sold off businesses in order to pay salaries. I kept on saying to them, remain hard-headed when it comes to results, but have a gentle heart when it comes to people. Lead with a firm hand, but a gentle touch. Servant leadership makes business sense. Because when the leader cares and when the leader serves, then the colleagues at the horizontal level, they start doing the same thing. And then sooner rather than later, they start caring about your customers. So what we saw at McCarthy was employee satisfaction went up significantly and customer satisfaction excelled. You need to be brave to be a servant leader. The easier way is just to be a tyrant, just to be the boss. Hide behind your authority. But it's unlikely that should you do that you will ever experience the magic of leadership where people spontaneously do their best. Second last lesson. Ethical leadership is a prerequisite for effective leadership. Integrity is the crucial currency of leadership. So leadership is not about charisma, leadership is about character. Leadership is not about personality, leadership is about principles. Leadership is not a way of behaving, leadership is a way of being. So if you behave with integrity, you earn trust. Trust trumps everything. And if you are trustworthy, then you have influence. And if you have influence, then you can lead effectively. But if you are dishonest and unethical, you lose your credibility. People will say this leader is not trustworthy, and that leader will have no influence and will be incapable of leading. Next leadership lesson. The acid test of leadership is the ability to translate vision into reality and to deliver results. So leadership is not about making promises. Leadership is not about fancy plans. Leadership is about the successful implementation of the plans. Leadership is about getting the job done. The leadership is not defined by your personal attributes. Leadership is defined by the results you deliver. Master the art and the science of execution, because the scoreboard has to be in your favor. Last lesson, very important in the world and the country we live in. Leaders deal in hope. There's such a shortage of hope in South Africa, and the one key leadership task is to instill hope in people that tomorrow is going to be better than today. So effective leaders can't afford to be afraid of the future. We must give the future a firm handshake. And we must have hope, because if we don't have hope, we can't give hope. So I want to say, I have hope. I have hope for this country of ours. My hope is faith-based. And I don't only have hope because I believe that God has a plan, I also do hope. Leaders need to do hope. Hope is also a verb. As leaders, we should complain less, criticize less, do more, reach out more, love more. Should we all do it, we'll create a new dawn for our country. A dawn that will be characterized by peace, forgiveness, reconciliation, prosperity, love. Hope is an extremely powerful instrument. Mr. Mandela, in his book, Long Walk to Freedom, said, hope is life itself. So I want to ask you in your leadership capacities, please have hope. Please do hope. Helen Keller, who was both deaf and blind, and who made such an impact on the world, said, hope sees the invisible. Hope feels the intangible, and hope achieves the impossible. If we look at the realities of South Africa, the massive unemployment, the poverty, the obscene inequality, all the problems, then we must almost achieve the impossible. But I have hope that we can achieve the impossible. Let me conclude. We spoke about the importance of leadership. So years ago, I read the following description of the impact of effective leadership. It says, effective leadership can turn weaknesses into strengths. Effective leadership can turn obstacles into stepping stones. Effective leadership can turn despondency into hope. But I want to return to the electricity analogy, because I've been far too serious. I'm going to tell you a story. Not a story, well, it actually happened. But it says so much about leadership, and the story is related to my electricity analogy. So some years ago, I went to Australia to visit the most successful motor dealer there, a guy called John Hughes. He started off as a mechanic and then had a little workshop. And today he owns many, many franchise dealerships. And we visited these dealerships, and wherever we went, I saw evidence of fully engaged people. I could detect the enthusiasm and the excitement. And I saw bright eyes and broad smiles wherever we went. And it was so inspirational, so that evening over dinner, I said to John, yes, like, how do you do it? Can you believe it? He didn't know what yes, like meant. But nevertheless, I said, yes, like, John, how do you do it? Because your people are so motivated, so inspired. And this is what I want you to take home. John's simple answer. This is what he said. It captures the essence of the leadership task. He said, I am the light switch every morning. When I walk into my business, I look my people in the eye. I engage them. I involve them. I empower them. I trust them. I coach them. I train them. I work with them. I respect them. He said, Bron, to be frank with you, I just love my people. So, ever since that day, I've had this assignment to try and be the light switch at home, wherever I go. It's a tough assignment. It makes a big difference. When you get back to the office this afternoon or tomorrow or on Monday, be deliberate in your efforts to be the light switch every morning. There's a serious side to it. You'll be the light switch provided you lead and not mislead. You'll be the light switch should you suppress your ego and build your character. You'll be the light switch should you genuinely care about your people and should you be willing to serve them. You'll be the light switch should you prize truth and respect and results and service above status and power and position and self-importance and self-enrichment. You'll be the light switch should you always stand for the truth, for the affirmation of the good. I want to wish each and every one of you every success with your leadership task. God bless. Thank you.